Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing another video from Grab the Lantern today. It's Wednesday and the patch notes have been posted, which means it's time for us to break down the top 5 changes of patch 14.4. I'll let you guys know what the biggest changes were in this week's patch and what you'll be looking forward to in the coming weeks. 14.4 actually has a ton of relevant and impactful stuff on it. I'm a little disappointed I limit myself to only 5 because there's a ton of things I'd love to talk about, but suffice to say there are a ton of impactful changes on 14.4, so let's not waste any time and hop right into things, going all the way down here to the very bottom, where we're going to be talking about tether ability changes. Now this is a small tweak, but Rider making tethers work much more consistently than they did previously, right? We've all been in a scenario where you flash at the last second to get out of a LeBlanc E or a Morgana R, only to get crowd controlled and take damage anyways after using your flash, right? That's a feels bad scenario, and it happens because of some server-side scripting wonkiness. Don't worry too much about the details. Suffice to say, Riot have updated tethers to break instantly upon having their range exceeded, rather than when the server is able to check and see if you're still involved or not. This means that it should be much easier for you to break a tether if you're out of their range, but conversely, it means it's a lot more fair if you actually do take the full effect of the tether, because you know the server's constantly checking, and so there hopefully aren't any more scenarios like the Aatrox good old-fashioned yo-yo. There is a full list of tethers here, but suffice to say, if your champion has a tether, you'll likely feel very slightly weaker because champions are going to be more easily able to get out of the area of effect. Riot will follow up if this makes a meaningful difference balance-wise, but I doubt it will be a major source of power loss for the champions listed here. If you're curious, it's in the patch notes, of course. You guys can take a look at it right here. Moving on to the number 4 change here, we're going to be talking about the Smolder changes. Now, this is his first patch post-release, and Riot are giving him a couple of very small nerfs, coupled with a few quality of life updates. The biggest nerf target here is, of course, to Smolder's W, and this, I know what you're thinking, this looks like a buff. They have done nothing but buff the base damage of his W. That said, though, they have nerfed the early damage, and generally what the aim here is to make it so that if Smolder is going for the really cheesy W max first build, where you're trying to poke enemy champions down or just wave clear, right now, if you W the whole wave, you'll get minions like perfectly low enough to then last hit with your Q. This change, though it looks like a buff, is actually going to make it so that if you're maxing W first, you're going to be one-shotting the wave instead of leaving them at super low HP, meaning that you're not going to be able to last hit them with Q, meaning that you're sacrificing your late game scaling for the early game damage that a W max build will provide. So this makes a very interesting trade-off for Smolder. If you go W first, you're going to have early damage and aggression. If you're going for the Q max first, you're going to have better scaling. There are trade-offs here now, and I'm a big fan of how they've managed to trade this around. There are also just a couple of small quality of life changes here. Q now gives you an extra explosion every 67 stacks as opposed to every 100. This means that you won't start with 3 explosions immediately upon getting the evolution, but you'll get it very shortly thereafter, and you'll get more explosions more frequently after that. And Smolder's mom will always come down if he gets the ability off, regardless of whether or not he dies. This means that if you're using your R to try and get the healing, but you don't quite get there and you die anyways, Mom is still going to exact vengeance on anyone who kills you. Very nice set of changes here for Smolder. I don't feel he's too far off balance. Very, very happy with this current change list. Moving on to the number 3 changes here, we're going to be talking about Volibear. Volibear has had some issues holistically for a while now because Riot want to buff him. The problem is his R is so powerful at allowing him to snowball leads because it disables towers for so long that they haven't really been able to find a good opportunity to do so, right? Because if he gets ahead, he will continue to stay ahead because not even your tower can save you. As a result, Riot are pulling some power out of his ultimate, but are able to spread that power around in other places on his kit. To wit, the ultimate turret disable duration has been reduced by a second at all ranks. This means that you have a little less time to kill the guy and get out before the tower starts shooting at you again. And the CC resistances has been changed from total crowd control immunity to unstoppable. This sounds like it's the same thing, but I actually did some research. I didn't realize this was a thing. The difference is if you hit Volibear with crowd control in the leap on his ultimate right now on live, that crowd control literally just falls off. Morgana binding hits him, does damage, but literally does not apply the bind at all, versus unstoppable, where the bind will hit and it will apply, but Volibear will keep moving until after the ability ends, at which point he'll suffer the remaining binding duration, if that makes any sense. So this is a meaningful nerf. I know it looks funny, but that is a nerf. However, Riot have been able to now find an opportunity to give Volibear some very nice buffs elsewhere. His E's cooldown is down very slightly for the Bear Wizard enthusiasts in the audience. His Q now gives him even more bonus movement speed when moving towards champions, or just in general, but now when moving towards champions, remember that it's doubled. So this is actually even more of a buff than it initially looks like. And Stormbringer's cooldown has been reduced by 30 seconds. at rank 1. That is insane. Now you don't have to save this ability specifically for like the tower dive scenario or when you absolutely have to use it. Now it's an ability that you can actually feel more free to use in a lot of different scenarios and not feel as bad about putting it on a 160-second cooldown. Very big fan of these changes, and I feel like he's going to feel much better to play following these changes going live. Moving on to the number 2 changes here, I want to talk about K'Sante, and as much grief as I give Briar for her constantly getting changed, K'Sante's also no stranger to the patch notes, and I feel like I've covered him quite a bit recently as well. Yet again, K'Sante isn't offering sufficient counterplay to enemies during his ultimate, forcing Riot to throw nerfs his way to make his ultimate an actual skill check as opposed to just making it so his opponents are all out of counterplay options. The nerfs here are actually pretty significant. His Q no longer slows during all out. I don't think they ever should have made this change in the first place, so I'm glad it's being reverted. His W now no longer has the reduction on the minimum channel time when he's all out, so it will always take the same amount of time for him to channel W whether he's all out or not. And his E's dash speed has been nerfed across the board. Like when he's dashing to an ally, when he's all out, and when he's neither of those things, it's just generally a much slower dash overall. These changes then mean that opponents will have a lot more time to see what K'Sante is doing. They will see him charge his W, they will see him Eing forward to try and land a Q, and of course he can't constantly perma-slow you with his Q once he's all out, as he's actually, eating your face at the same time. I'm a fan of these changes, but certainly it's a pretty big power down for K'Sante. He did get some quality of life buffs back. His base mana has been increased by 30, which matters a lot because of the recent Q nerf on the mana cost. And he's also got a little bit extra base health, and his Pathmaker has better armor and magic resistance ratios on the damage. These are all fine, but generally K'Sante players are going to feel a little weaker when they're in their ultimate, but fortunately this is going to mean that they'll at least have some degree of counterplay, or at least we can hope. Certainly if you're a K'Sante fan, you're going to feel a lot weaker moving forwards, but I think these changes are for the best overall. Finally, the number 1 change on this week's patch are the changes to Rek'Sai. Now, Rek'Sai has been one of the least popular champions in the game for a while now. That's not hyperbole. She's like literally in like the bottom 5 or something of champions played. And most of this is due to the wonkiness with her current kit. She wants to kind of build fighter, but her fighter builds do so little that she kind of has to build full lethality and hope that she can just blow people up and end the game by 20 minutes. And she also has some really weird scripting issues in her current kit. As an example, Q isn't an auto attack right now. Her unburrowed Q is not an auto attack. That sounds funny, but it isn't. It's a spell, and that means it doesn't benefit from attack speed, which is so stupid, but that's literally how it works. And there's a hitch in the middle of her E animation where she like kind of stops for a second. It's like a micro pause, which should never have been there, right? There are a lot of things that Riot are trying to do to figure this out. But so basically 2 main things is Riot are trying to smooth out the wonkiness from her kit, but also make it so that she has a legitimate fighter build. The changes here initially look pretty bad, but they are all in service of a slightly beefier build as opposed to full lethality. Her health regen went way down, for example, but her passive's healing is now significantly better at all levels. It did lose the base healing, but that just moves her towards caring more about max health. Her unburrowed Q is now an auto attack and grants attack speed as well on activation, so it'll be snappier the more attack speed she has. While she's burrowed, she has slightly more vision range than before, and now gains the bonus movement speed based on ability rank instead of level, which makes this a potentially more enticing second max. And her Unburrow's area of effect knockup is back. This is very, very cool and very exciting, though of course maybe a little concerning as well for reasons I'll touch on here in a little bit. Her unburrowed E as well no longer has a base value. Instead it just deals the percent health damage no matter what, and at max fury it deals 100% AD, and at max damage it deals percent max health damage as opposed to just the true damage instead, which I think makes it a very interesting mechanic as well. And her R lost a ton of scaling, but Riot are intending her to build a little bit more beefy on this patch overall. Now these changes look good for a fighter Rek'Sai. I, however, am very worried about these changes returning tank Rek'Sai to the game. She has a lot more incentive to build straight tank thanks to the reliable area of effect knockups and the percent max health damage and the percent max health healing, but the changes also incentivize a little bit more of a flighty Rek'Sai build where she can go into a fight, knock people up, then go back in her tunnel to get out to safety. The tunnel cooldown on reuse is actually significantly lower than it was before. So this is like a legitimate thing she could opt into. So I'm curious to see how this plays out. I'm just really hoping it doesn't bring back tank Rek'Sai because that was no fun for anybody. And that is going to be it for today, guys. Those are the top 5 changes of patch 14.4. Let me know what you're most excited for down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days like today as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later.